Good morning. Happy Tuesday, podcast day. Let me get my Instagram live up. Get this party started. Make sure that everybody can hear me. I think there's a way. Good morning, Rock. Rock, can you just confirm that you can hear me okay? C. Valentine. Can you guys hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. I always want to make sure people can hear me. I got a lot of thoughts today, and I want to make sure I get it all across. We're going to be talking about some CrossFit propaganda. I just want to start by saying I love CrossFit. I'm a CrossFitter. All right, you guys can hear me okay. I'm a CrossFit fan. I love CrossFit, but I got some beef. And I want to be able to talk to you guys about some CrossFit propaganda and some things that might be holding you back from making progress. I am not even going to waste any time because I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of thoughts. And it actually was sparked by one of their latest podcast episodes talking about the GLP-1 drugs, which, by the way, I do have opinions about, but not in a way that I'm for or against using them. I'm for or against the misapplication of them. And it just got me really thinking about how we can all be so conditioned to be in a fixed mindset about this is what works and it's the only thing that works. And this black or white thinking is why so many people go to a CrossFit gym. They're doing CrossFit for years and they either stop going because they burn out or they stay exactly the same. They make some initial gains, initial progress, and then they stall out and they never actually make permanent changes. And a lot of it comes down to just not simplifying things for people and building a nutrition plan and nutrition advice that actually will help the clientele of the gyms be able to make effective changes in their life. And I find that what's happening is you're like me. You're being fed information. I mean, when I first got into CrossFit, I drank the CrossFit Kool-Aid and I went all in on the CrossFit diet. And I ruined my relationship with food. I was eating a very restrictive diet. In fact, I saw a recent post that came up in my Facebook stories of me celebrating my lunch. It was literally grilled chicken breast, broccoli, and some guacamole. And I was literally training like an athlete, training for 3 to 4 hours a day, training for the CrossFit Games. And I'm like so proud of this meal. It was probably maybe 400 calories, not enough to fuel my body. And I want to really make sure that everybody understands how to be fueling your body the right way to get the most out of CrossFit, whether you have excess weight to lose, whether you are trying to build muscle tissue, whether you have competitive aspirations, or whether you just show up to the CrossFit gym because you want to feel your best and be healthy. I think that it's really important for everybody to understand that just like CrossFit is scalable, you have to know how to scale nutrition for you and not getting sucked into all of the different rabbit holes. And I want to hopefully clarify some things for you today so you can get out of all that crap and focus on what matters most. Now, I will say this. At its core, the CrossFit methodology does have a good nutrition philosophy, okay? Eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar, right? As a core diet, and keep intake to that will support exercise, but not body fat. To the core, that is a very healthy way to eat. But everything needs to have some flexibility. Everything in life. Like even going to the CrossFit gym, right? You go to the CrossFit gym and it says, this is the RX workout. The flexibility is you scale that based on your needs, right? And it's the same thing with that core diet, right? We can take that core programming philosophy or that core diet philosophy and learn how to apply it to your life. And that is really what is missing. That's what's missing from the CrossFit diet mindset. And that's what I want to help with today. So let's go through some of the things that I am finding to be common when I'm working with people in the CrossFit community that is holding them back, right? First one is most CrossFit gyms do not have a well-built, like accountability system with nutrition. But that's because that's not their job. CrossFit coaches are there to coach CrossFit, just like Orange Theory coaches are there to coach Orange Theory. And just like a strength and conditioning coach is doing strength and conditioning coaching. And, a bodybuilding coach is doing bodybuilding coaching. Like, you have to realize that nutrition is separate from that. And your CrossFit coach is likely not very qualified, nor do they have the time to give you what you need for nutrition. They can give you a basic plan, like most people can, right? But that's not what most people need. In fact, that is what got me into nutrition full time, because I was not able to coach the way that I wanted to. And the only way that CrossFit gyms, for the most part, go all in on nutrition coaching is with challenges. And what that leads to is this belief that, like, this is what you have to do in order to get your nutrition in check. You've got to go through this extreme challenge for like 30, 60, or 90 days and be all in on paleo or zone or whatnot, or, macros, whatever it is. And they're never given like the sustainability factor. Like, imagine be like, all right, we're going all in on CrossFit like 6 days a week for the next 30 days. And like, you're not missing a day and you're going super intense every single day. Like, you would not want to keep doing that program. You have other things going on in your life. So that's number one, is like, we have to get out of this. It's this all in or all out thinking with this challenge mindset. I know this because when I was in a CrossFit gym, that was my way. That was my entryway into helping people with their nutrition. It was like, let's get things cleaned up. And while a reset is great, resetting with extremes leaves people feeling like shit when they decide that this is not going to work for them long term. They judge themselves. I can't stick to this diet, so I must be a failure. It must be me. I get it, right? You're like, it's 30 days in, and you're like, all right, I really just want to have a piece of bread. I really want to have this. Or you convince yourself that, like, this is how you're supposed to be eating and you feel really good, but you really don't. I drank the Kool-Aid, and I believe that was elite for following this super restrictive diet. No grains, no dairy, which is number two. Okay, the second thing I was done is the CrossFit propaganda of like, you've got to remove all the grains and the dairy from your diet. Like, I fully believe that those foods were making me sick and were making me fat and were making me unhealthy. And I literally like demonized them for years and like felt like, oh no, I don't eat that. I just eat paleo foods, right? I thought that that was the healthiest way to eat. And that could not be further from the truth. There are people that eat bread on a regular, in fact, Europeans, like people that eat bread and dairy on a regular basis, and they are perfectly healthy. They have great body composition. They're performing well in the gym. They have energy, and they're also enjoying their meals. Okay, the demonization of like avoiding all of these foods isn't teaching people how to apply nutrition more effectively with what's available to them. Okay, you don't need to avoid all of these foods, and it's setting people up for failure by telling them that if they eat these foods that they're doing the wrong thing. Now, there is like, obviously we want to make sure we're getting the right amounts of foods, but taking a complete food group out of your diet isn't necessary, nor is it sustainable. So we don't need to do that. Second one is avoiding and removing processed food and sugar. Processed food and sugar gets such the focus in the CrossFit diet. Like, carbs and sugar and processed foods are making you fat and overweight. And while, yes, there is some truth to the fact that hyper palatable foods that are a combination of carbs and fats together, are going to be easier to overeat. But guess what? You can make those foods with healthier ingredients and they're just as addicting. Okay. So like, people can make paleo cookies and paleo treats and all this stuff with almond flour and dates and, butter and all this stuff. And guess what? It's just as caloric. And also you're going to want to eat just as much of it as if you had a regular chocolate chip cookie. Okay. So like, it doesn't really change the factor. Maybe you're getting some more nutrients from those foods, but let's just face it. When we're wanting to have a cookie, we're not eating it because the nutrient density of it. We're eating it because we want to be able to have a cookie. Okay. So this avoidance of all of this processed food and sugar leaves people to be like, I've got to remove sugar from my diet. And I've got to remove, all of the processed food from my diet. Well, sometimes those foods can be helpful in your diet. And sometimes those foods are going to help with diet compliance, because if you just want to have a cookie, having the cookie now might stop you from overeating the cookies later on, right? So like having the one cookie is okay. So removing and avoiding processed foods and carbs and all that stuff. The next thing is this overemphasis on a lower carb, higher fat diet. I remember I was following paleo and zone, and the prescription was this. You had your zone blocks, and it was like equal carbs and protein and fats. But if you were still hungry, just eat more fat. Just eat more fat. Like, don't add more carbs in, because that's going to spike your blood sugar. And I don't know like how I convinced myself that this was right, knowing what I know about calories, but this is the brainwashed shit that I experienced when I started CrossFit. Is I convinced myself that calories didn't matter and that blood sugar mattered more. So I would overconsume fats, which are over 2 times as caloric as carbs. So I really just wanted more sweet potato, but instead I would have another 200 calories from butter or nut butter or something else, right? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So we have this overemphasis on removing carbs and then an overemphasis on including more fats. And it's why people get stuck. They're in CrossFit and they're like, I'm gaining weight following this diet, because you're consuming more calories from the wrong foods. CrossFit is a primarily glycolytic activity. You're burning carbs. Why are we eliminating carbs? Okay, so like, that's another huge thing. Another big CrossFit thing that I just, and I like, honestly, I feel so bad, because like I said, I love CrossFit. I love the training program. I love the workouts, but this nutrition stuff is just getting out of hand. Okay. If you go on the CrossFit.com, there is all of these different articles with conflicting information from different diet fads and trends: carnivore, keto, fasting. In fact, I just went to look at their latest nutrition articles. And do you know that one of their latest articles was talking about the sugar diet? A company that is demonizing sugar has an article put out there about the sugar diet. Somebody that's preaching, teaching, eating nothing but fruits and honey. I'm like, this is so unbelievably confusing to people, because you're just going all around the rabbit, like different scapegoats. Like, it just, why are we doing all of these fads and trends? The simplicity of the methodology was laid out in the original 100 Words of Fitness, and yet we're still going down all of these different trends. Okay, another one, and this is the one that got me sparked to talk about this today, is CrossFit has this new, we're not the quick fix. We're not the quick fix. We're not the quick fix. Okay, that's great. They're talking primarily to those people that are on the GLP-1 drugs. Okay, I actually was going to record an episode today on GLP-1 drugs, so I might go down that rabbit hole a little bit right now. I'm just letting y'all know. You know, when you're talking to me, you're going to get a little bit of everything. It's hard for me to stay focused on one thing. So when I'm passionate, I get going. Okay, they talk about not being the quick fix. All right. Why can't we talk more about being the sustainable change? We know you don't want the quick fix. I know that CrossFit wants everybody, and I say CrossFit as a brand and a community, wants everybody to win. They want everybody to be healthy. Okay. We know you're not the quick fix. We know that you want people to show up at the gym every day. We know you want people to stay on a diet that's sustainable. So why are we doing all of these quick fix strategies, these diet trends and fads and these extremes? And are you any different than the GLP-1 drug, right? Telling somebody just remove carbs from your diet, telling somebody just to remove sugar from your diet. Is that really teaching them anything? No, it's taking the food out of their life. And it doesn't ever teach people how to be able to enjoy food as part of their life. The GLP-1 similarly takes the food noise away so the person can control portions. But is it sustainable for them to be on this drug forever? Well, I guess they can. There's some side effects to it. I could, like I said, I could record a whole episode alone on GLP-1 drugs. I don't want to get down that rabbit hole today. But it's the same thing. If you're just going to just remove everything from a person's diet, that's not sustainable. being on a medication to silence your food noise isn't sustainable if you aren't teaching how to actually make changes. And changes don't need to happen in extremes. Okay, so this is all stuff that I'm just like super passionate about talking about today. Ooh. This one I should have probably put before talking about that one, because it kind of lends itself more to the whole talk about the diets and trends. There's a huge focus in the CrossFit nutrition on blood sugar and insulin. Like, it's all that they talk about, like blood sugar, insulin. They very rarely talk about what matters most: calories. Calories matter most. Hate to say it, but that's the truth. Okay. In fact, you don't believe me? Why are bodybuilders so good at manipulating their body weight and their body composition? It's not because of their insulin levels. It's not because of their food quality. It's because they know how to manipulate calories. That's exactly what it is. Okay, so whatever you think it is, that's truly what it is. There's an overemphasis on blood sugar and insulin, which makes people focus on the wrong details. Again, we're going back to avoiding carbs, but we're not controlling calories. Okay, doesn't matter how many grain products you take out. If you're over consuming nuts and nut butter and dates, like, you're still going to be in a calorie surplus. You can still eat too many calories from unprocessed food. Blood sugar and insulin are not impacted only from your nutrition. They are impacted from things like lack of sleep, stress levels, and calories. Calories cause more of a change in your blood sugar than carbs do. The dosage is what creates the response. So if I have 100 calories from carbs, not a big deal. If I have 500 calories from carbs, a little bit bigger of a blood sugar thing. If I have 100 calories from carbs, or if I have 500 calories from carbs, protein, and fats, the 500 calories is going to spike my blood sugar, my insulin levels more. Calories matter more. Okay, but there's an overemphasis on this blood sugar thing. Why are we stressed about blood sugar? Why? Because if we're focusing on building sustainable changes, like, the blood sugar is going to regulate on its own. Your body is designed to work with you. If you're controlling calories, you're not going to have extreme blood sugar spikes. So why are we overemphasizing things that people have no control over? Let's talk about better sleep and stress management and better food quality and calorie control, right? So all of this stuff is so important, okay? Let's talk about some non-nutrition related propaganda. And I also fell victim to this. Intensity. CrossFit preaches intensity as a shortcut to the good stuff. And I believed this full-heartedly, okay? Give me a 2 to 5 minute workout that was going to leave me flat on my back, and I worked hard enough for the day. But you know what the bigger problem is? America sits all freaking day. All day. So that 5 minute workout that got a person moving for 5 minutes a day is not going to touch the fact that they are sitting all day. We want to talk about insulin sensitivity. That's a recipe for insulin resistance. Literally sitting and doing nothing all day. But if a person believes that their 5 minute workout was enough movement, they're like, okay, I got my workout in today. I did enough. I don't have to do anything else. Okay. We need to understand the importance of intensity for progressive overload, right? For building fitness, you're pushing the barriers. So intensity meaning, when I'm talking about this, it's if I'm never testing to see if I can go a little faster, if I can lift a little heavier, I'm not going to create a response from that. But it doesn't mean that these 2 to 5 minute workouts are more beneficial for your health and body composition goals as doing a longer workout that's less intense, doing some strength work, right? Like, the intensity piece doesn't really matter all that much. It's really volume accumulation and progressive overload in all areas. Even if you are trying to get better at CrossFit, I hate to say it, but that's truly what it is. The athletes that are getting better at CrossFit are not just doing a 2 to 5 minute workout. they're doing 2 to 5 minute intervals and they're training that time domain and they're getting better at clearing lactate and getting better at pushing paces and building confidence. That's what they're doing. Okay. So, and oftentimes the problem with intensity is some of the CrossFit movements, you can't go as intense as you want to because they're scary, right? If I'm like, we're doing 21, 15, 9 barbell snatches, you're like, every time I put this barbell over my head, I am so afraid I'm going to hit myself. So you're going later. You're not getting the strength work in, right? So it's knowing that intensity isn't necessarily the shortcut to the good stuff. Consistency, volume, and progressive overload is, okay? Another big issue, well, CrossFit propaganda, is I was a believer in this too. I avoided non-functional movements. I avoided things like hamstring curls and even glute bridge. Like there's no glute bridges. There's no muscle group specific exercises. And for some people, those can be very, very, very helpful for bringing up muscle imbalances, building muscle in specific areas, and actually getting stronger. Because if you are squatting all the time, but you're not activating your glutes, like, yeah, you might be limited on how much you can lift because you're not learning how to activate those muscle groups. So doing some more glute bridges might help. A lot of CrossFitters, and this is like very common with at-home programs, it's, let me give you a 30-minute workout. And it's like just random, like 5 to 10 to 20 minute, like Metcons. But if you're not getting actual strength work in, you're missing a huge piece of the puzzle. Like we all need to be lifting weights and not just like Metcon weights, like actually lifting weights and not getting it. And honestly, that doesn't have to be heavy barbells. It's dumbbell strict presses. Like there's not enough of that strength work that can create change. You know, like handstand push-ups are a great movement for training the shoulders, but not every person wants to do handstand push-ups, right? Adding in strength work is good. Dumbbell strict presses. And that's also, I guess, where it comes down. I'm going to give CrossFit they do have scaling options, but a lot of times people don't know how to scale appropriately. They see the movement and think that's what they're supposed to be doing. It's like, oh, let me do like a box handstand push-up that looks, oh God, some of those look horrible, right? It's like, okay, no, I need to train shoulder strength. Like I'm going to do dumbbell seated strict press instead. Okay. The next thing that I wrote down, this is a huge thing, and this is for everybody here. Who is CrossFit talking to? Who is the CrossFit nutrition advice for? And this is very important to understand because CrossFit is for everyone, right? Everyone can do CrossFit, but not everyone is for CrossFit. Some people don't like CrossFit. I said, I love CrossFit, all right? So the CrossFit diet, a lot of who they're speaking to is the overweight, obese community of people, okay? People that are like, they're trying to get people that are not doing anything to start moving. But it's like, there's also this whole like CrossFit is sport, which is a whole new group of CrossFitters. And the nutrition advice isn't really being separated from the demographic that they're speaking to. The general foundation is there. Eat meat and vegetables, let's eat some fruits, little starch, no sugar. Keep intake to that, which will support exercise, but not body fat. But that's so like cookie cutter. And I'm a high-end athlete. And if I'm online and I'm listening to a CrossFit podcast talking about insulin being bad, and I'm now avoiding carbs because I'm told that the CrossFit diet doesn't want carbs, and now I'm like under-fueling my workouts, what do you think is going to happen to my performance? Vice versa, like, you got the person that's like, they're trying to like just clean up their diet and eat healthy, or they're overweight and they're obese, and they're like, yep, nope, like you should not be eating any carbs. You should not be any grains, any dairy, any sugar. And that's maybe their whole diet. Rather than being like, hey, like maybe we should include some more protein. Like, who are we actually speaking to? Like, we need to realize that the nutrition philosophy needs to get so far away from these extremes and bringing it back to the core foundation that was in the 100 Words of Fitness and teaching people how to apply it in the real world. And that's the next thing I wrote down. Practical application. Most people, you might be one of them, already know that you need to make nutrition changes. Like, you know that you need to make changes, but there's things in your life that make that very difficult. And you love going to the gym because for that hour, like, you can put all that stuff aside and you go to the gym and you don't have to think about those things. It's your time for you. But applying nutrition while doing all that other stuff is very difficult. And this is like the biggest thing that CrossFit is missing the mark on. How do we build a nutrition plan that people can follow and feel good about in their life? How can we make eating healthier feel less overwhelming and simple and being able to apply no matter where you're at in your journey? How can we make one simple step, getting out of these extremes and having to like always do everything by the book and learn how to actually build something sustainable? That comes down to real world application. And that's why all of their advice is failing you, because it doesn't always apply with where you're at. There's things that make it hard for you to apply it with where you're at in your life. You know, yeah, surely when you're at home and you're eating in your kitchen, like, it's very easy to control food. But what about when you go to a birthday party and maybe you have a birthday party 3 weekends in a row? Now you're telling yourself you screwed up your diet, right? That's real world application. I think that that's where we're missing the mark here. And it's why the CrossFit, like, this is the stuff that's holding you back. So black and white, so all in or all out on all of these rules and never actually learning what it looks like to build sustainability. Okay. And also, let's talk about the precision stuff lacking. All right. Now, I was able to find an article and it does support this, but it's hard to find this stuff on CrossFit.com. Okay. It said, track your food for 7 days. And 100%, that's what people should be doing. Track your workouts. Why aren't you tracking your food? Why aren't you tracking so that you can change things, so that you can see how you're making improvements, right? You do the same thing with your training. All right, I see last week I was under on protein. I got to increase my protein this week, right? Just like when you're lifting, you're like, all right, last week I lifted this much weight. I'm going to try and lift this much weight this week. It's the same thing. So we need to start to look at CrossFit. If there's one thing that CrossFit does really well with their program, right? It's measurable. Everything is measurable. There's standards. There's deviations from the standards that we know, right? Like, but there's a standard for the movement. And then there's scaling options for the movements. And then there's progressions for the movements. And then you're tracking data over time. We need to apply that. And that should be what you guys are focusing on and knowing how to adjust that stuff. Why are we going down all of these rabbit holes when that is what people need to be doing? Hey, you're tracking your workouts. Start tracking your food. Start making small changes to your nutrition. Stop the black and white thinking. Stop thinking you have to do everything at once and focus on the little things. And this applies no matter what demographic you are in. If you are the 350-pound male that is walking into a CrossFit gym in your first week and you feel insecure, or you are the 43-year-old female with 3 kids and you've been doing CrossFit for the last 10 years, and you're wondering why your body is all of a sudden changing and you have no control over it, regain control. Okay, you guys can have control. You don't need to listen to all of this shit. All you have to do is track your food and know how to adjust. How do we optimize? If you want to learn more about optimizing your nutrition for your specific goals, for CrossFit, even if you don't do CrossFit, I don't care if you don't do CrossFit. If you do functional fitness, you like this stuff, I would love to help you. Okay, so just shoot me a message, shoot me a DM. You can email me. I'll make sure I drop my contact info in the show notes. But we got to start simplifying and making it easier for you to apply. Okay, because I'll be honest, all the CrossFit diet advice, aside from the fact that eating a lot of high quality foods and weighing and measuring the amounts, the rest of it didn't get me anywhere. Didn't get me anywhere, but lost. In fact, I gained weight, a lot of weight. So that's what I got today. And I know I'm going to probably get some hate for this. In fact, I'll be honest, I almost did not post this episode today. You know why? Because I was worried about being criticized by CrossFit. Because unfortunately, the brand of CrossFit is very cliquey. And if you have anything to say against CrossFit, you're kind of not part of the cool kids club. And I always want to be a part of the cool kids club. And I love CrossFit. I do. I love the methodology. I love the sport. But I don't love the diet advice. And I would be doing myself a disservice and doing you a disservice if I didn't put out my true thoughts about the CrossFit diet mindset. So I'm going to open up the floor to questions. I'm seeing if anybody is on here that has any questions so far. Anybody have any questions so far? Anything that I mentioned? Ooh, I got a lot of comments here. Good morning, guys. Bruce, I'm not sure if you're still on, but I want to touch on this. Okay. All right. So Bruce writes, your body can survive without carbs, but not without fats and protein. That is a true statement. Your body can convert protein and muscle to energy via glucogenesis. It can survive. But is our goal in life to survive, or is our goal in life to thrive? Why would we not fuel our body with its primary energy source if that's what's going to make us feel our best? That's like saying I could save money and be able to go on vacation and take time for myself, but I'm not going to. I'm only going to ever spend money on my necessities. Electric. I'm going to make sure I have the bare bones. I'm living my life to pay for nothing aside from what I absolutely need. Is that a way to live? No, you want to be able to go on vacation, okay? Yes, your body can survive without carbohydrates, but you are also putting yourself at risk for muscle loss. And again, most people will feel better and have better appetite control, including carbohydrates in their diets. Why are carbs a problem? Good morning, Holly. And Ashley says, I love what you're saying. I'm a primary care nurse practitioner and I preach this all day long. I will say the gym I go to in my tiny town of Central Illinois does all of this. So amazing. 100% Ashley. And I will say this, a lot of CrossFit owners have become more conditioned to recognize that there is a lack in actual, application of the CrossFit diet into real world scenarios and for sustainability, and have started to develop different coaching protocols. And that's great. But a lot of gyms are also still, like I said, gym owners, their job is to give you a good experience in the class. So they don't have the expertise and stuff like that to give you the coaching that you need in nutrition. Some gyms have taken that leap and that's awesome, but most gyms don't. Good. Judy, great point. Judy brings up the fact that carbs help her get her fiber in. A lot of times on a low carb diet, people aren't getting enough fiber because I'm going to be honest, most people on a low carb diet are also not doing the real diet. They're not eating fruits and vegetables and like high fiber foods. They're eating like meat and cheese and butter, and they're not getting any fiber. And fiber is essential for good gut motility. So, and hormones. In fact, hormone regulation, a lot of my ladies that have when I have women that have crazy period stuff going on, and I look at their fiber intake, I'm like, eat more fiber. You'll probably see your hormones balance out a little bit more. Great addition, Miss Judy. Judy, we got to catch up. It's been a while. I'm looking. Do you guys have any questions? Nutrition, diet, training? Anything else that I haven't already talked about today? How about, do you guys have any things you have maybe been told about nutrition that maybe you feel like isn't right, but you're not quite sure if you want to go against the mold? Because I remember that. I remember when I first started adding like some grains back into my diet and yogurt. Oh my God. When I added yogurt back in, woof, whole other story. I felt like I was doing something wrong. I remember my first bowl of oatmeal. To this day, I remember having it and being like, oh my gosh, I should not be eating this food. Why am I eating this food? And guess what? Nothing bad happened to me. So nothing bad happened. Here I am, still alive, still pretty lean, still feeling pretty good. All right. So what other questions do we have, guys? Anything else before I hang up? How many of you guys want me to do an episode on GLP-1 drugs? Does anybody have any interest in that? Because I do have some opinions on it, and I want to start by telling you that it's not about me telling you that you shouldn't be on them or that you should be on them. It's just I want to give you guys some clear direction if you are going to use them, how to use them appropriately, and some of the things that obviously you want to watch out for. But what other questions you guys have? I am still so stuck with that bodybuilding diet mentality. Yes, Rock, you are. In fact, I didn't post this, Rock, in the group chat because I'm going to talk about it today on our call. Is your biggest issue, I'm going to call you out, is your cheat meal mindset. You are so stuck in a restrictive pattern of you undereat all week and you tell yourself you're not hungry. And then on the weekends, you overeat, you overindulge, and then you're back on it on Monday. And that's what's holding you back. That's the number one thing holding you back right now. And it's something that we're going to have to work through if you truly want to see changes. And you're not alone in that. I'm sure that a lot of people that are listening to this right now just heard that and they're like, yep, that's me. It's really easy to be on track all week when I'm busy. But on the weekend, there's more food around and I want to be able to enjoy it. Part of where the flexibility comes in. For knowledge purposes, it would be good to hear about your thoughts on GLP-1s. Yes, I think I will do my next episode on that because I do have some thoughts on the use of them. And honestly, like I said, that's what prompted me to talk about this today because I was like listening to this episode and I'm like, this is just, why are we focusing on this stuff? Like at the end of the day, people are going to use them. So we're better off equipping people with the right tools to use them appropriately. The GLP-1s can be a quick fix if they're used improperly, but so can a restrictive diet. A restrictive diet is a quick fix. And that's why I was like, it's the same thing. You tell somebody, let's just go super strict on a diet for 30 days. Surely anybody can do that for 30 days. Can they sustain it for life? Probably not. So we need to be addressing the bigger problems here. But all right. Well, if that's all I got today, I don't overindulge, but drinking is a thing. Oh, yes. That is a huge one. In fact, you know what's also funny? CrossFit doesn't talk a lot about alcohol. But if you want to know one of the biggest things I see holding a lot of people back, that's actually what it is. CrossFit, there's not a lot of talk about alcohol in the CrossFit diet stuff. And 9 times out of 10, I shouldn't say 9 times out of 10. Let me say 5 out of 10. One of the biggest limitations is multiple drinks per week. And people don't realize that they're under eating and they're drinking their calories. Not often talked about in the CrossFit world. So, yeah. All right. Well, if you guys have any topics that you want me to talk about, I'm always looking for topics and suggestions. Feel free to shoot me a message. I will make sure that you guys have access to signing up for a strategy session if you are looking for nutrition coaching. We are finishing up the Jumpstart in a couple weeks here. This is we're in week 3 right now. Next week is week 4. So we are going to be finishing off our first 4 weeks. And by the way, my Jumpstart, not a quick fix. And in fact, that's why, Rock, I'm calling you out because I'm not worried about how much progress you make in these 4 weeks. I'm looking at making permanent changes with you. So that's my main focus point with my Jumpstart people. But if you guys want more information, if you guys need some help or guidance with your nutrition, always feel free to reach out to me. I am a real person. I've had a couple of people that are like, are you AI? Or like they think that when they set up a call that it's going to be with like one of like my call people. No, you're going to talk to me. It's going to be just me. It's just me, little old me you're going to talk to. So whether that's underwhelming or overwhelming, I don't know. But anyways, that's all I got for today. I hope you guys have a fabulous day and I will talk to you all soon.